Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Kristen Ragusin, and she is the Senior Vice President of Investments with Raymond James. Welcome, Kristen.
Oh, thanks, Gary. It's so nice to be here with you.
So, Kristen, you've been doing investments for a while. Tell us, how did you get into it? What made you kind of get started with that?
Yeah, it is actually sort of a fun story because I've definitely been doing this a lifetime. And it still was a surprise to me when I ended up choosing it for work. I think it really still more chose me. But as a little girl, I'm not kidding, 5 years old, 6 years old, my father used to have me earn my allowance, which was $1 a week, explaining to him how the market worked and how options worked and what interest rates were. And so every Saturday we'd have to answer his questions or at the end of the week. And if I didn't get it right, I didn't get my dollar.
Oh, wow.
you know? And so we were trained, my sister and I were trained from an early age. And then even as I got older, my father at that time had a real stockbroker and had a Merrill Lynch broker and would show us how to buy stocks. And he would get us to get invested. And he said he would promise to reinsure me on my losses so I couldn't lose any of my money.
Right.
And I thought, gosh, well, he should insure my gains too, huh?
Yeah. Have a little play in the up game, right?
That's right. So even after college, I think I was surprised that this is the route I went, but why would one really be surprised? And I started in Boston, sort of still when it was old school, cold calling. You had to bring in money. We just were becoming asset managers at that time. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do it for 2 weeks. We'll see. And then when I sat with my first client, I really was just taken because I thought, my gosh, you really could help people be empowered and feel comfortable with their money, which I was surprised to find out that people really are not comfortable with money. Yeah.
So over the years, what's kind of kept the fire in your belly with this and kind of really, get you juiced up in the morning before you go start dealing with everybody?
It really is the clients. I would say, the thing that I loved at Merrill, which is the same thing, if not more so at Raymond James, that they put you in a position that you feel like you own your business, that clients are your clients, and everything you're doing is your heart and soul. It's really very much integrated as part of your life. And then as the business is really very varied, you could specialize however you wanted to, focus on particular clients or areas where you thought you could have impact, and you could pivot at any time. So I always found it interesting. Clients were fascinating. I've learned so much from my clients, and I continue to, 31 years later, every day I learn from clients. And so it's seeing how much you sort of have this special, intimate relationship with people, very much in these professional lines, but they're sharing things with you that they don't share with other people. So you're seeing this kind of vulnerability, this questioning of what the money means, what the goals are. So it's a really special relationship that goes far beyond fiduciary, as well as business entrepreneurial. And and then it still is a fascinating landscape because it's changing all the time. And it's totally integrated with the human aspect. Why do you want the money really? Once we've gotten over the bridge of stability, safety, hitting goals, what does the money really mean? And these are the things that have kept me engaged. And definitely at the beginning, because I sort of had this strange upbringing with money just being playful and fun and, something that of course we were going to learn. When I sat with my first client, I was just surprised by the defensiveness, all the different kinds of emotions, even the shame or the whole worry that one didn't know something. And so building that relationship has always been really, really important to me, so that people can ask questions, or I can ask the questions they don't know to ask. And then really kind of going full circle to figure out, is this the right route? And here are the pros and cons. So it's a very dynamic, interesting relationship business. So I really do love it.
Yeah, I think it's important. You talk about, the relationship, and I think that anytime that you're picking a professional advisor for you, it truly needs to be a relationship. It's not something, that you're talking to them once a year and kind of put the plan on the shelf and come back to it in a year. I think you have to have that relationship, and you have to be talking throughout the year about everything, just to make sure that the plan that you build is implemented properly.
Yeah, and you find out a lot more through those regular conversations, things that people wouldn't necessarily think to tell you, or you wouldn't know to ask. And also, I really think people should use their intuition, take their time in terms of really feeling comfortable with the person.
Mm.
And everybody should make their choice as to who they want to work with. um, we do it in all other areas of our life. And I think especially when it comes down to money, you still have to know how people are being paid and how decisions are being made. But at the same point in time, also feeling like, you have that trust that's being built over the years.
Right. Now, so you aren't just an advisor, you're also an author. Tell us about your book.
Yeah. The book is sort of hitting at some of those bigger questions around us in the framework. The book came out of the big recession of 2008. So I had been working on a master's degree and just away from the office for like 3 weeks, finishing up the program. And when I came back one night in between, I saw that some very short-term funds that did not have a lot of price instability. They should have just kept that straightforward dollar share price were falling for no reason. And interest rates were not moving in that direction. And I remember thinking, that's really strange. And they were AAA rated and all the rest of it. So I had called down to the fixed income desk in New York to ask them, and they pretty much, just shoved me off and said, don't worry about it, you know, not a credit problem, just a liquidity problem. And, gruff as they usually were at the desk at Merrill, I would say to them, well, what do you mean? You mean, so there are more sellers than there are buyers? And I said, so at what point does a credit problem, a liquidity problem become a credit problem?
Right.
And this thing sort of built, and I could see that 2008 was coming. I just, and you were watching the financial firms selling off assets that didn't make sense, highly profitable segments of the business. And so I made the decision to move every client who was not income constrained into cash. And the market went straight up for a good period of time after I did that. And then soon enough, it just started to rip open and the big crisis came. And so even though I was in a great position with people, it was really a watershed moment, because I could just see the angst, people who had worked there for 40 years, losing everything, their clients losing everything. And I stopped, even though I thought I understood everything growing up with this, to really go and see what created the crisis of 2008. And it was different than what I thought it would be. It wasn't really writing bad loans to people who couldn't necessarily afford them. That was more a symptom of the problem. And it led me all the way back to truly understanding how the dollar is created. And when I saw that the Federal Reserve doesn't really create the money, they create reserves, they don't create the dollars we use.
Mhm.
Um, and in fact, that we really are there's no fractional reserve lending, we're just at zero. The
Right.
banks just create as much debt as is possible, right? And so we're on something called credit creation. And then I saw that the American dream was probably not really fundamentally uh, valid, that you couldn't actually, it wasn't attainable. And that in fact, when you created the money incorrectly, you crush the middle class. You sort of return to this realm of oligarchy, or a few very wealthy people and lots of peasants. And that actually the root of it was creating the dollar incorrectly. And then I started looking at monetary history and found, lo and behold, same old story for the last 6,000 years. And every time that a government or a society would create money out of production, the promise to deliver goods and services, rather than just some either scarce amount of coins circulating or debt, that's really today consumer debt, society thrived or it went into chaos. And so when I saw that, in fact, what we're using as money today is simply someone's mortgage, that 97% of the money circulating is created by borrowers, and this is what produces the booms and the busts in our society. So it was such a watershed moment for me that I think I was depressed for like 9 months.
Right.
And I've sort of always been one of these happy, optimistic people. And I thought to myself, my goodness, you end up with a rentier economy where the early generations, they rent their cars, their college educations, their music, their home. They don't own anything anymore. And in fact, you destroy capitalism because you're creating the money supply out of consumer debt rather than productive industry. And then I found out the solution's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. And it took me 7 years to research this for fun and in my spare time. And when I found, wow, the solution's been out there, the founding fathers knew about this. This is actually the making of America, that if we could bring this information back out, because I do think it's been written out of the textbooks, we have an opportunity to create the most beautiful, founded society where real investment exists and enterprise can thrive. So the intent of the book is to return the knowledge that used to be readily available to us, to show us how easy this is to do it, and to really return the sense and all the beauty of what this country has stood for, to all the generations coming next.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think that, talking, reading excerpts of your book and so forth, that, you talk about understanding money and scarcity kind of in a different way than typically we learn about those things. In going through stuff with I'm going to say the limitations on FDIC and things like that, how do you see that affecting, our money, and how really not everything is insured?
Yeah, I mean, most everything is not insured, right? It is sort of shocking. There's some real shocking points along how we conceive of money. I mean, first of all, the Fed doesn't create it, right? The Fed actually produces reserves, and those reserves don't have much, I would even argue, to do with anything. I mean, it helps sort of check clearing. Banks just have to be solvent, and that's a different ratio. So if borrowers are just creating our money supply and we say, oh gosh, okay, I have to save money because that's the nature of our system. When I go to deposit it in the bank, what does this mean? And the problem is the language is very, it paints a different image. Every time we deposit money in a bank, it's not a deposit. It is a loan to the banking institution. The only way that we can make a deposit to a bank is to put something in a safe deposit box. And then still that, in essence, is the property of the bank. If the bank closes, we're not going to be able to get that out of the safe deposit box until it opens. So when we automatically deposit our paychecks, or we put money into the bank up to $250,000, we are very much counting on the FDIC insurance. And I think we can count on the FDIC insurance. There are some very important things to understand about it. And it is unnerving because we assume that FDIC insurance is sort of insured. It's that the money is there in the
Right.
kitty in case it's needed. But it's not funded. It really is just a promise, a political promise, a promise that would create tremendous chaos if it wasn't upheld. It is conceivable, I mean, that it could fall through, or it could be used for some type of social engineering, some new system that some powers that be would want, to where that could actually fail. But FDIC insurance, probably at the time when I was really writing this book, was 5% funded. Today, it's almost less than 1% funded.
Wow.
Um, I would still say this isn't quite as alarming as it sounds, because it would be quite dramatic, for a government to let something like that fail. At the same point in time, the government can back up, the federal government can create as much money as they want. They do have the golden keyboard. And so, even though it's probably wise to say, let's audit the Fed or look at these kinds of things, the federal government actually literally does not have a real budget like you and I do, or the states do, or businesses do. We have legitimate balance sheets and budgets. But a federal government creates the money supply, especially when we use its own currency. So Alan Greenspan, back, 20 years ago, was asked by Paul Ryan, shouldn't we privatize Social Security? There won't be enough money later on to pay it. And Greenspan properly answered, no, not needed, in the sense that a government that creates its money supply can always create enough dollars to make well on its debt. The question was, what were we doing with that money? Were we investing it productively so that when we got the Social Security checks, there would be something to buy in the stores?
Yeah.
So yes, very important that people stay under the FDIC limits today. Often we say 240,000 instead of 250, so that the interest on the CDs is also insured. And there are many different types of great money market products out there where they're insured up to 10 million, in the sense that the computer will put your money in, and then as soon as you get close to the limit, it moves you to another bank and another bank and another bank. Yet it's consolidated in one instrument and has check writing abilities, often with, sweep, where you can just write against it and it liquidates, or it liquidates in 24 hours. And that stuff has been paying over 5 in the past year. So completely liquid, totally insured, FDI insured up to 10 million. And of course, that rate would be variable based on interest rates and how they would move. So those type of products exist. People also could use a treasury fund, a treasury bond money market. But likewise, for investments, people have up to 500,000 typically insured from fraud or loss through the SIPC, which is like the sister government organization of the FDIC, just for investments in banks.
Right.
Mm.
Right. In your book, you also talk about the flaws in our currency system and kind of the booms and busts. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really think that markets were supposed to go through ebbs and flows. Pure investment capitalism is actually a beautiful system, and either people like it when I say it, or they get really mad at me. So it just depends, what news sources and people are listening to, or where they're, where the belief system is coming from, right? And I say that, when investment capitalism is the car, the thing is you have to use the right gas. And we are using, and the gas is the money. Because if the money represents the capital, if the money is created correctly, boy, does investment capitalism work. You get money flowing where the entrepreneurs are producing value, where they're getting ready to provide products and services, and the people who need to earn the money. It's all the money is circulating around the people doing the real work and contributing. And it makes it very hard for businesses with integrity and supply to not meet their demand if we've created the money right. And on top of it, money actually maintains its purchasing power, or becomes a great store of value. And so I think one of the easiest ways to sort of describe this is the founding fathers, it was a different age. I really think they were coming off of a time of great enlightenment, that in England they had in the early like 1100, they had an enlightened king more or less that brought out a proper form of money supply, and that brought about the Magna Carta, which was the precursor to the Constitution in 1250. So they had 500 years to talk about this incredible document. So this Constitution of ours was not just created in 10 or 5 or 50 years. It really is the product of 500 years of discourse and great understanding. So they created money properly at that point, and it brought about parliament and the idea of self-rule and the end of feudalism. And lo and behold, the Bank of England came and they got rid of all of this. And we went to a system that was really based on scarcity, which is a system that's based on control. And the founding fathers found themselves in debt. They all came to this new country because they were heavily in debt and they wanted a new start. So there weren't enough gold coins. And even though we've been taught that sort of gold is sound money, it's pure money, I argue that it's really not. It just sort of was the best of what was available without technology. And the problem is when the money supply is small relative to all the real legitimate growth that wants to happen, the people with the gold can control the system, or they can make it really scarce, or they can crash the system, which is a lot of the history of the United States. We've had significant crashes throughout our not very long history. The money system has changed 7 to 8 times since the inception of the United States. And so the founding fathers knew that gold was too small of a quantity of tokens of exchange. So they created colonial script money that was backed by productive farmland. And interestingly enough, in our folklore, we sort of miss the idea that that script was not fiat, was not just inflationary money. It was actually backed and represented a certain amount of productive farmland. It created such equality and such thriving, such equal opportunity for people to contribute and find how their unique talents could express, that in the documents, the British said, wow, this mischievous money system of the colonies must be put out. And so they did. This is actually the real cause of the Revolutionary War, was correct money. And they brought tall ships up and down the seaboard of the eastern seaboard with printing presses to inflate our money supply. Because they knew that a quantity of too much money in circulation relative to the amount of real productive supply was how you crush and demoralize and destroy a people. And so I have all the history in the book. It's actually written in a very fun way. And the history is fascinating. And without this history, we are easily made use of. And corporations used to get a charter. They would show how they were providing value to the community. And that's what the stock market was meant to be. Now, of course, it's often a gambling casino. Yeah. And we can easily return it to something that would be beautiful, that respects all of what we do for and with one another, which is what money is really supposed to represent, is this sacred value that we're all producing and enjoying with and from one another. So today, unfortunately, we are on a system where virtually 100% of the money supply that we use, it's 97%, is created as someone's mortgage or college debt. And this is the main reason why the price of a house or the price of college is largely unaffordable and has become the dominant part of what people have to pay every month, the paycheck. That capital that's being created, the bank creates it on the spot. When somebody goes to get a mortgage, you're not borrowing money from someone else. There's no 10% fractional reserve lending. 100% of that money is created on the spot. And it begins to circulate when the house is purchased or debt is created for college. And, the problem with that is what we saw in 2008, or we could see again, if people cannot continue to take debt, the money supply implodes and we get these massive destructive boom, a bust in the economy, the money that you've saved for 7 to 10 years in the market has incredibly instability, which it's not supposed to have. And the bigger part of it, of course, is that the capital is not there for business owners. And capital was supposed to be created for the business owner, rather than those loans having to be collateralized as they are today. And then the other very important part of this is that when a mortgage or a college education or any kind of debt is repaid to a bank, yes, that debt is destroyed, but so is the money that created it. So if money does not exist separately from debt in our system today, every dollar that you see is actually someone's mortgage debt. So when the mortgage debt is repaid, the debt is gone, and so is the dollar, because it's just like a quarter with a head and tail side. And that's why we're living this heavy duty consumer pressurized money society, is because we have to create more debt as soon as any debt is repaid. And we probably have to create more debt for the possibility of people to have an increased standard of living. The founding fathers would be rolling in their graves if they knew this is the system we were on.
Right.
Right. And so it makes it so much harder, especially for business owners who are contributing, and the vast amount of employers are small businesses,
Mhm.
and they need access to capital. They need a safe place to put their money that grows for prosperity. And can you believe it, that it's actually not the political system, the economic or the social system, it's the monetary system. The money is created incorrectly. Um, so it's not that I want to demoralize people, but it's waking up to say, oh my goodness, this is what our grandparents knew, what their grandparents knew. We need to know it now too, and we can change it. We're actually coming up upon a time where the dollar is going to be. So it's very important that we get educated on how it should be created, so that we make sure we create a better system rather than a worse one.
Right, right. We're running short on time, because I could definitely talk about your book for a while. What have I not asked you wish I had?
You know, I guess, that at this time where people really are worried, I just think people are worried in every which way, no matter where they fall on the spectrum. And I would say to take heart, and to really sort of, the most important steps are, to take care of one another. Really, it just say to all the people in your life how grateful you are for them, and really take care of our family and our friends and build our communities as much as possible. That network is probably the most important investment that we can make at this time, because people are very powerful and the people count. And for as much as it seems that the people that are in charge or whatever else don't pay attention, they do. So the stronger that we make our personal networks and our business networks, and the more that we build our communities and our local farmers and all this kind of stuff, the more positive this future is going to become. And then also do the right things, save money properly, reduce debt where you can, reach out and get trusted advisors, and then also look at the new things that are coming. Whether it's, Bitcoin's going to come on the horizon, not that I'm giving any financial advice, but a lot of, alternative currencies are coming. There are many really positive things that one needs to get educated about. So first, realizing how supported we are, and even for people who feel alone, to really know that you are inseparable from the fabric of the whole of society. That, no one is a lone ranger here, and to reach out and build this structure. It is the most empowering thing we can do during change, and it brings that true abundance, which is the nature of life, tangible. And it also stabilizes us out, so we're empowered to make better decisions as we come upon this time of change in the next few years.
Great. Now, Kristen, if people like what they hear and they would like to talk to you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way to reach me is through my website, which is KristenRagusin.com, which is KristenRagusin. Ragusin.com, or the name of my book, which is theendofscarcity.com, or I can be found just, my name is so unique that, I think my office at Raymond James is on the internet. So, I'm happy, and more is coming. And I will be talking this year actually at a lot of big conferences that will be on my website as well. So that's
Great,
probably the best way.
great. And people can find your book on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon's the easiest. It's Barnes and, it's still out there,
Yeah.
Audible, Barnes and Noble, but Amazon, of course, is the easiest.
Right, right. I really thank you for your time. I think that reading your book definitely opens your eyes or people's eyes to kind of some of the things that are going on, and making people not be so much of a sheep.
That's right. No, all of a sudden everything makes sense. And, the first few chapters do pack a punch, but if you make it through the book, a lot of people tell me they can't put it down. You feel really empowered by the time you're done. And my mom was my first reader, so she kept on saying, make it more simple, more simple.
Right,
So the book is also written in very simple language because it's the education that we should have had in the first grade, and then all through school.
great. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Hey, our guest was Kristen Ragusin, and she is the Senior Vice President of Investments with Raymond James. I will see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.